In this video, I would like to go over the basic fundamentals, right? The Tim Duncan on them. I'm just gonna lightly discuss scoring for hitting and scoring for pitching throughout the industry, and I've kind of made it pretty convenient, easy to read. I've went and grabbed the scoring information for FANDUEL, DRAFTKINGS Yahoo, and PrizePicks, and there are some differences in pitching. There are some differences in hitting, but I think pre-flop the differences in hitting aren't as much of a sweat to decipher as I do believe the differences in pitching are. So I don't want to lead with that. I also want to let you guys know that pitching for me is everything. That's the bulk of my research day to day, is pitching centric. If you turn on one of my streams, I'm likely 90% talking about the pitchers versus the hitters, because if you find the pitchers you want to play or the good pitchers, you likely know the bats you don't want to play, and if you find the pitchers you don't want to play, you likely know the bats that you want to pick on. So on top of that, pitching is probably the position with the most finite control over ranges of outcomes, meaning if you you give 100 pitches, 100 opportunities to accrue fantasy points, it's going to level out a little bit better for you long term than 4 at-bats, 5 at-bats for your hitters. And skill is skill. It is what it is. Strikeouts and a really strong pitcher will have a higher floor slate to slate than a top hitter in the league, and that's just the way it is. So pitching is easily the number one priority for me. And when you start your lineups, I would encourage you early on. You can get creative later on, but early on, if you're baby stepping in it, prioritize pitching. Create the highest floor that you can with pitching. Don't even necessarily think about the ceiling, because when you think about ceiling, you'll start wanting those double dongs and triple dongs out of your hitters. Think about your floor. If you can find your 20 plus fantasy point floor guys on DraftKings, I think that'll give you you'll go a long way as you progress and slates get a little bit wonkier. Yes, there's going to be 12, 15 fantasy point SP2 options on DraftKings and so on and so forth. But early on, I would really encourage you guys, if you're new to MLB DFS, really work on identifying good pitchers versus bad pitchers and start your lineups and your player pools with those guys. So let's talk about the scoring. Scoring for pitching can be confusing, and it's also pretty different site to site. FanDuel and DraftKings, the two biggest sites that we're going to be talking about all season long, have significant differences in how they approach pitching for daily fantasy. First and foremost, you'll notice on FanDuel, you only choose one pitcher, and on DraftKings, you choose 2. Secondly, FanDuel is much more simplistic with how pitchers accrue fantasy points and how they lose fantasy points. It's a point per out, 3 points for an innings pitched, 3 points for a strikeout, 6 points for the win, -3 for an earned run allowed, and 4 points for the quality start. Quality starts when a pitcher goes 6 innings that allows 3 or less earned runs, and I do think that is an underappreciated method of scoring that I wish DraftKings would add, I wish Yahoo would add, just because I believe it rewards skill a little bit more to your pitcher that you're researching, because 6 innings is hard enough in this league, 3 or less earned runs is hard enough, and then nothing hurts more than your pitcher losing his win in the top of the 9th, and you got nothing to show for it on DraftKings, and it's just what he went out there and did for 5-6 innings, right? So I do love the quality start, and it is a big part of my process on FanDuel. Oftentimes, I don't even allow a pitcher in my player pool unless I believe in 6th inning potential. On DraftKings, I call it an efficiency site. You're going to get 2.25 for an innings pitched, 2 points for a strikeout, 4 points for a win, -2 for an earned run, and then this is where the efficiency part comes to play. You're going to start getting taxed on traffic, on base hitters. -0.6 of a point for hits allowed, walks allowed, hit by pitch, and that can add up if your pitcher allows 5 to 7 hits and walks. So it's really a site where you want to focus on your low traffic guys, your low whip guys, and you don't get rewarded for the quality start. So you can kind of live on the edge with your SP2 options long term once you get the hang of pitchers, and kind of go after a couple of 6 to 8, 9K guys here and there if you think you can get 2x. Now, value is subjective in any sport, but in MLB DFS, I really don't believe in even trying to find value. But if there was a position to have an return on investment price point, it's probably pitching, and I really like to have 2 to 3x my starting price. So if I got a 6K guy, can I get 12 to 18 fantasy points for tournaments? I'm okay with leaning more towards the 2x side of things, but I definitely don't think about that for my 5, 6K guys in cores or whatever. I just want high upside guys. Now let's talk about that. So we focus, we prioritize pitching. Let's talk about the basics of scoring for hitters across the industry. I'm not going to read every point accrued on each site for the hits and whatnot, but I will say, if you just look at it, the points for tournaments, you're going to want the power. You're going to want the doubles, the triples, and especially the home runs. You get a couple of base hits there. That's not really what you are seeking to go after the top of your tournaments night to night. So you want to focus on power. You want to focus on, you'll hear ISO a lot, slugging a lot, OPS. We'll talk more about that in this video series. But if you look across the board here, you see the big points come from the home run. And then, of course, I do believe RBIs and runs are big as well. And then stolen bases are pretty popping. But stolen bases are a little bit harder to kind of have any type of predictive value. There's really just a handful of guys that you lean on for stolen bases: Trey Turners, Whit Merrifields, Adalberto Mondesi's, guys like that. And then past that, it's a little bit more volatile. So I really focus on hitting because it's probably the most control you can have over the matchup. Who has the strong power matchup, who has the strong power stats. And yeah, that's what we're focused on. If you look across the industry, the RBI and runs scored are 3.2 for a run on FanDuel, 2 on DraftKings, essentially 2 on Yahoo, 2 on PrizePicks, and RBIs are 3.5 on FanDuel, 2, 1.9, and 2. I want to discuss what that is and kind of introduce you to correlation in baseball. You're going to hear stacking a whole lot in baseball as you start to broaden your reach and learn more about the nuances of daily fantasy baseball. You may have heard stacking in football and even in basketball and football, and a quarterback and 2 receivers, right? If a quarterback throws a touchdown, a receiver on his team likely going to catch that touchdown, and then that 6 points becomes 12 points plus the yardage. Kind of the same concept in baseball, right? Well, first of all, if you like a guy, you probably like the pitcher that he's going against, which means it's not only a good matchup for him, but it's likely a good matchup for his teammates as well. So here's a picture of the baseball diamond. We got a hitter. I don't know who it is. Looks like a lefty. Let's pretend it's Cody Bellinger. We got first base, second base, and third base. Looks like there's a guy on first base. So the RBI potential here is 1 RBI if he hit a homer, and it would be actually would be a 2 RBI homer or 2-run homer with the RBI credited to himself for driving himself in. But if you had 3 guys on base, bases loaded, and you hit a double that cleared the bases, that's 3 RBIs and a double. And not only are you getting the points there for the RBIs for that hitter, but if you stack the team and you had those guys on third, second base in your lineup as well, when they touch home plate, you're getting the points there for the run scored. So essentially, you're throwing the touchdown, you're getting credit for the hit and the runs as well. And that's the basics of why correlation is so strong, because there's a positive correlation between the hitter getting an RBI and the base runner getting a run, and you just double the fun there when that happens. So that's why stacking is so popular. Stacking's probably the what's going to win tournaments. If I had to put an obscure number, probably 95% of the time, you're going to see some lineups where they just have 1 or 2 guys from a team, and it's just the perfect storm of home run hitters, but more often than not, it's going to be a mix of two great stacks that went off, and the fantasy player who made that lineup just shuffled the two stacks there. So basics of scoring, hopefully that helped you out. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. All these videos I'm trying to keep around 10 minutes or less, so we're at the 10-minute mark. If you guys have any questions about scoring or any of the nuances that you've experienced with scoring, leave a comment below. I will say that it can get a little weird when you start experiencing fielder's choices for your first time, or a double steal where one guy got thrown out and so it doesn't count for the other guy, or even earned runs to unearned runs. That's something that you'll learn as you go, but that's kind of like as we advance a little bit. I want you guys to just know the starting points for now, and you'll learn those as you go, right? The T-ball, we start with the T-ball, and then eventually we take the ball off the tee, and you'll start knowing more and being more aware of everything going on. But that's the basics of scoring. Leave a thumbs up if you appreciated that. If you're new to MLB DFS, check out this full series. I'm trying to serve as an ambassador, getting you guys into MLB DFS and grinding that summer with me. If you have anything else for me, twitter.com/Gundacker, and I'll see you guys in the next one.